This is an all-day sitting in early December 2021. Thank you. In Springwater. We're joined with a number of people online and one cat. And a number of people here in Springwater. On a windy, cloudy, sunny, changing from one moment to the next day. Warm and cold. Sometimes with this advent or this innovation of using Zoom, we talk about how people are coming together from all sorts of places, not just the United States. But what was wondered about here, or is wondered about at this moment, is are we here? Whether we're listening on a computer, sitting in our living room, sitting in a bright meditation hall, for the moment lit by sunlight, here, at this moment. And if we're not too caught up thinking about maybe I'd love to be in Springwater, or I'm just as glad to be home, this really works for me. Just if for a moment we don't really know where we are geographically, but there's this sense of being here, listening together, or by oneself. Well, we are together. And the listening, the talking, the listening from the talking, and the talking from the listening. And where are the boundaries? When thought is insisting on my separation, one listening. Here it's wind, rattling the house, the trees, the goldenrod, dry in the fields. And yet, in that listening, there's also silence. That the wind doesn't disturb. At least that's the sense here at this moment. what came to mind to look at this morning, actually there were a number of things, but to start with, was this listening, or what we call, or use the word term here, awareness, or perhaps attention, what some people call mindfulness. I don't really want to get into parsing all of these terms. I really don't have the knowledge. They can be they can mean different things to different people, or to even to this person at different times. Which is why there's this tendency to stay with this here listening. So that really in that sense, which word is used doesn't matter much. It's what speaks to one, what expresses what's observed. There was some trepidation here coming into the all-day sitting with people coming for the first time. Maybe for the first time to sit in a group, or a first time to sit anywhere quietly without moving, and maybe not. I don't know, because the sitting room this morning was so quiet, so still. And this isn't a matter of experience, although it does get easier to stay still. When one has done it. But the trepidation or the wondering, maybe that's too strong a word or too fancy a word. The fear was that people would sit and not know what's next. What am I supposed to do? What is the meditative work at this place? The practice. And perhaps looking at the website or at some of the books that we have here, one's noticed that the word practice is somewhat avoided, or perhaps even a little bit pushed aside, denigrated, because the word implies something that we do in a repetitive way to achieve a certain result. Something that's done so that in the future I'll be more peaceful or more awake, or I'll achieve something that I've read about. So moving away from that word, and we can talk about whether what has been said is so, anything that has been said is so. It's not the intention. This is just an exploration, not just an exploration, an exploration of what it might be to sit quietly, walk quietly. You mentioned in the sort of the prelude for the people here that walking outdoors, despite the presence of hunters in the surrounding properties. Eating, resting. Seeing if it's possible for there to be, let's say, for moments at a time, not to start grinding away, trying to be, but to question, wonder if it's possible. Maybe a little shuffling in the room. The wind is quieted. Maybe there's nothing, no object. And it's not listening in the sense of picking out an object, focusing on it, hoping in that way will still thought, but just open to what's here. So even that word listening can be dropped. Awareness, perhaps, listening to whatever. And of course, with this person, probably for most of us, a lot of what's heard, aware, is thought. The movements of thought, perhaps sometimes disturbing thoughts, or maybe often. Something remembered, something once said to someone that one regrets, but it was said to you, to me, to this person, and there's hurt. And there's a determination to make things right, to right the scales. And this is not said in any kind of judgmental or pejorative way. The sense here in awareness and listening that the content isn't really all that important. It's the listening. There was something that came to mind before the talk. A little vignette or a picture. I noticed recently driving out the driveway here onto the dead-end road, the Mill Street extension that Springwater is. Sign. Just at the end of the road, of the driveway. And I remember sort of the genesis of that stop sign. I had early days come to the end of the road in a car. I don't know if it was my car or a center vehicle. And started to pull out and notice that there was a school bus coming from the, I guess from the left, from the dead end part of the road. Or yeah, that's what we call it. And I thought it would be a good idea to put a stop sign there as a reminder. So I went online, I found one somewhere, ordered it, put it up. And Tony, who gave talks here for many years, whose books are out in the hallway, was very pleased. She said, yes, stop, look, and listen. I don't think she was talking necessarily about traffic. But this, again, possibility to pause in the midst of the stream of thought, the stream of an emotion that's engendered by the thought, or emotions so convoluted we don't know what we feel, of confusion, of this endless task of self-regulation, or of self-description, or of narrative, of yes, an endless flow of narrative. Now I'm going to the bathroom. Now I'm going to eat. What will I eat? Will I eat too much? I'm getting old. I go to the bathroom too much. The narrative and the judgment and the wondering what people think of me. Am I doing well? Am I a good meditator? Will I pass the exam? There's no exam here. Do I hear the wind? Sense the breathing? Perhaps the movement of the stomach or the chest. Maybe some stiffness. Maybe there's really a complete relaxation at this moment. Is that a task? Or a should? Or are there just these moments when there's a little space, or a lot of space? No need to quantify or qualify. Just and in that kind of an opening, not taking for granted that what has been happening has to continue, but wondering. And maybe I was a little, maybe too quick to say the content doesn't matter. Maybe noticing something in the thinking. We've been down this road before. And wondering if it has to continue. What the attachment is to the thinking, the thoughts. Is it a fear of quiet? There's so many ways to drown out the quiet these days. If you go to a restaurant, there's televisions. There's things to wear in your ears. They even make them now for swimmers. You can listen to music or podcasts anywhere, anytime. And we can always listen to our thoughts. Probably most of the time, even when we're asleep. Kind of modified version of the problems of the day plays out with some cinematic touches, soundtrack. So the invitation of a day of quiet, of stillness and of stillness and motion, if I can say it that way. That there's the feeling of the steps as one walks, the movement of the body, getting up, sitting down, and again of the movement of thought. And wondering if this movement can be observed without judgment. Judgment sort of brings in a little judge, someone separate, deciding what's good, what's bad. These are bad thoughts, these are good thoughts. These are pleasant, that's unpleasant. Or thinking itself is bad. And then no thinking is good. And the experience here is that in that judging, there's a tightening, and there's more thinking, more emotion. And the quiet that was sought for, the peace, the release, is obscured by this efforting, striving, becoming someone in the efforting, becoming the meditator. Is it really something that odd or untoward to sit quietly? It's not, for most of us, much of our experience. But well, we can look at this moment. It's possible. I was up by the pond on a short walk and a short break. Actually got a little longer walk, stretched the break a bit. But the pond was sparkling in the sunlight. And there was something happening. One corner, there's no corners on the pond, I guess. In one part of the circle, something fell in or something jumped, and ripples spread out. Kind of a expanding V, catching the sun, and then quieting, dying, disappearing. At the same time, clouds reflected in the pond, moving, passing. So not to stretch this too far, but is it possible, the thought, springing into action with words, this species, humans, see things through words or obscure things with words. Live in words. But might thought appear and quiet? on its own. Without anybody pushing away, taking charge, trying, always trying to be better at something. And comparing, well, last year I was this, maybe by next year I'll be that. And this stopping. Right now, stop it. Listening. Well, maybe one says, what's the big deal? Listening to what? I don't know. We don't know. That's what's kind of neat. Maybe going out for a walk. Maybe one has certain ideas about land and buildings, about nature. And one walks with one's ideas, or one walks with memory, what someone said to me, what they're like. Listening, not judging, and maybe those thoughts quiet. Somewhat, doesn't matter. Nobody has to keep track, count. Nobody, this person. But it is noticed that there are these moments and see something that would normally thought to be terribly prosaic, terribly banal, the weeds in the field, and it's seen freshly. The beauty of the brown, I don't know what they are, faded flowers, seed pods, the squishy ground, the feel of the feet in the soft earth. This kind of not intentional, but surprising not knowing. Being with what one thinks one knows. What's coming up is that this person, the one walking, the one sitting, is also kind of a conglomeration of knowns. What I am, what kind of person I am. I'm a good person. Well, I got mad the other day. But maybe somebody, I was justified. Well, I don't know. And it goes on, trying to define me through these knowns, the past, through thought, ideas, and comparison with others, or with other thoughts about this person. So I'm wondering if this kind of seeing freshly, of not knowing, and not taking it for granted that the repetitive or the familiar, by its familiarity, is the actual. It's not to say one has to start a new project, building a new image, a new self, but just wondering about the whole thing. Just what's happening right here. And again, without any judgment, that drags it into that realm of effort. And it's just the start of another description, another line isn't the right word, another overcoat of what I am. What if I don't know? What would happen? Talked a little earlier about the fear of silence. If it's quiet, if these descriptions and descriptors are not present, what will happen to me? When I'm not striving, struggling to become someone, what am I? Sound of wind, the figures on a screen, some shuffling, breathing, alert, sensitive, open, present, here. There was I hope it's okay to share this. I think so. Someone on staff shared a picture on one of our things that we talk to each other on social. Is that social media? One of these chatting things of a child, 3-year-old, a 3-year-old who had tremendous physical problems from birth. And as I understand it, had to be on intravenous feeding tubes from birth till 3. And in this picture, he was tasting yogurt, food, for the first time. And the expression on the face, so incredible. Even the eyes weren't actually open. But the whole sense was this discovery of something so incredibly new. So present. So alert. So here. One sees this in animals, the deer, graze in our fields. This ability to kind of be here, not be tied to what happened a few seconds ago or 50 years ago or centuries ago to my people. To not divide, to separate. At least for moments at a time, to be just wholly with what's here. And I'm not sure that this is something so awfully foreign to us. I think we recognize it. That it's seeing it in the child, any child, perhaps. This picture that I saw, maybe something is awoken here. It's here. But we just kind of get caught up in responsibilities or things we think we're responsible for, or we think somebody else should be responsible for. And in this defining of who I am and who you are and why you're different and why you're inferior or why I'm inferior, and it bounces back and forth. But then there's these possible moments where that whole house of cards can collapse, dissolve, disappear. And there's no need to be afraid of this disappearing. This organism functions beautifully. Even when I'm not, I'd say, especially when I'm not judging, describing, wanting it to be different, in conflict with what's here. When there's just this, just meeting without a meter, without anyone to judge, right or wrong, open. What is this? What is this moment? We'll end the talk here. There's still about 10 minutes to lunch. People can sit if they like, but there won't be a walking period at this point. We can get